Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Okay, students, we meet again. This time I am going to share with you the ideas of John Hick, being the founder of Religious Pluralism. And for this, I will focus on 5 arguments put forward by John Hick in promoting his ideas of religious pluralism. Okay, what are those 5 ideas? Let us go very quickly to the ideas. So first, I am going to highlight Hick's ideas on religion and culture. Secondly, on his ideas on the transformation of salvation, understanding the transformation of salvation in religion. And then thirdly, on the his proposal on the interpretation of religious myth and his reliance on mysticism to promote religious pluralism. And finally, the use of language game in promoting religious pluralism. Okay, now let's go to his first ideas on religious pluralism. All right, in my earlier lectures, I have introduced John Hick indirectly, stating that he was the founder or the propagator, the first person who coined the term religious pluralism and developed the philosophy on religious pluralism. Hicks was somewhat influenced by Smith in the sense that he looks at religion as as a dynamic entity. Religion is not stagnant; it is dynamic and it continues to grow from time to time. Yeah, and Hick seemed to embrace the same perspective, the same ideas or perceptions held by Wilfred Cantwell Smith in the sense that religion is a historical construct, it's human construct. So it means that this based on the practices of people from the earlier generations to the current generations and the following generation. Yeah. And in his latest works, in somewhere in 2000, John Hick talks about the possibility of all these what you call that different religions converging into one. Yeah, that would be very interesting to discuss. Yeah, especially when he said that the route or the road to this converging has to be prepared with engagement, interreligious relation to make the convergence possible. All right, so enough with that introduction. Let's go to the way he understands religion and culture. According to Hick, religion is a matter of luck, sort of, because he said religion is a fortuity of birth. Like, it depends where you were born. Say, for example, you were born in Malaysia. Yeah, it's quite interesting because if you're born in Malaysia, either you become a Muslim, a Buddhist, or a Hindus, or Christian, because we are living in a multicultural, multi-religious society. So it depends on your luck. But if it happened that you were born in Saudi Arabia, the likelihood for you to be a Muslim is very high because that's a dominant religion in Arabia, in Saudi Arabia. What if you are born in Western countries, in America, for example? So most likely you become a Christian, even though even America is a multicultural, multi-religious society. And not necessarily that you're born in America, you become a Christian. But anyway, this is how Hick at least look at uh, how you were raised into particular religion was mainly because you were so much influenced by your culture, by your context. Now, Hicks used this argument to uh, to justify his ideas about this cultural context and religion. So he used Xenophanes, for example. Xenophanes, who believed that religion is very much by the influence of the culture. So, for example, Xenophanes said that utopians make their gods black with turned up noses. Why? Because the utopians were black and have that physical outlook of the nose. The Thracians make their god in, different colors, red hairs, blue eyes. Why? Because that's how the Thracians look like. Mortal thinks that gods are born and have their own food, voice, and shape. Mortal means people who, not people, community, culture, society, who believes in mortality, that we finally will die, also perceive God as a being that will finally die and a being that has similar characters like man. And also, Xenophanes justified that if you look into the past and understand the classical, the ancient nomadic society, how they survive. Yeah, they survive by moving from one place to another. So as they move from one place to another, they need certain criteria that enable them to sustain the harshness, the rough life. So this community always think of God in male term. Yeah, so therefore, if you study the religion of society who were nomadic in the past, you will find that most of the gods pictured in their culture were male gods because God is associated with strength, with endurance, with toughness, so on and so forth. Whereas if you study the religion of the society who live who live or who earn their living through agricultural means, so the likelihood for the people to think of God in male terms is very low. Why? Because for the people doing agriculture, they value fertility. And therefore, fertility is a symbol of women. Yeah. Hence, they associate God with women, so they have female God, for example. Yeah. So it is in this regard that religion, according to John Hick, is very much shaped and determined by culture, someone context, historical context, cultural context, society context. So this was his first argument. All right, and the second argument, which is even interesting, was with regard to his ideas on the doctrine of salvation. Hicks made the doctrine of salvation as a core doctrine in every religion. I think this is somewhat problematic with regard to John Hick's idea of pluralism, because he kind of imposed the idea of salvation to every religion. Like every religion believes in the concept of salvation. What is the concept of salvation? The concept of salvation is a doctrine in Christianity which believes that man is saved by Jesus Christ, who allowed himself to be crucified to redeem the sin of man. Yeah, so as long as you believe in this doctrine that Jesus Christ died on the cross because he wanted to redeem man from his sin, original sin, then you will be saved. He will be He will come again, he will be resurrected again at the end of the day, and he will save all the Christians because all the Christians believe in him. Hence, their original sin were forgiven. All right, so what kind of transformation that Hicks wanted to promote via this idea of salvation? Yeah? He used the analogy of Copernican versus Ptolemy. So what about Copernican and Ptolemy? If you study science, then you know that Ptolemy believed that in the context of astronomy, Ptolemy believed that um, the Earth is at the center of the universe, while uh, other planets and the moons and the sun revolves around the Earth. So that was the earlier astronomic discovery about the universe. However, Copernicus came later on and challenged the idea of Ptolemy about the universe. Copernicus view that uh, it is not the Earth which is at the center of the universe, it is the sun that is at the center of the universe, while the Earth, as well as the rest of the planets, as well as the rest of the stars, moons, revolved around the sun. All right, can you get the point? Okay, so what this astronomic conception of the universe has something to do with uh, theology, religious pluralism, and Hick's conception of salvation. It is very interesting that John Hick used this analogy to explain the kind of transformation that one has to do in the theology of religion. So according to him, if you wish to accept religious pluralism, then you need to accept the idea, or you need to acquire the idea, the transformation idea of salvation, in the sense that you have to believe that your religion is not at the center. Whereas, what is at the center? The center is God. And your religion, including other religions, revolve around God. Now, he applied this transformation into Christian theology. So he said that in the context of Christianity, for example, the Christian used to believe that Christianity is at the center of universe, and that's how the word Christianity emerged. Christ. Yeah? Everything is Christocentric. Christianity is at the center of the universe, while other religions revolve around Christianity. Yeah? And this conception of Christianity, according to him, is he regarded it as Ptolemaic theology of religion. So Christianity had to move from this Ptolemaic theology of religion to Copernicus theology of religion in order to reform her understanding of salvation. The old understanding of salvation was in the sense that the Christian believed that they are at the center, or they were at the center of the universe, whereas other religions revolve around them. So what Copernicus theology of religion had to offer? According to John Hick, Copernicus theology of religions offer the idea that Christianity is not at the center of the universe, but it is God that is at the center of the universe, while Christianity and other religions revolve around God. So the transformation here involves in the context of making God at the center of religion instead of particular religion at the center. Can you follow me on? So as you can see in the slides, John Hick promoted the idea of transformation from religion-centeredness to God-centeredness. Yeah, the centrality of God instead of religion, be it Christianity, be it Islam, be it Hinduism, so on and so forth. So if you want to accept religious pluralism, you have to acquire, you have to accept this idea of transformation. And John Hick continued by saying that this idea of making God at the center requires followers of religion or particular religion to also transform from self-centeredness to reality-centeredness. Reality with capital R. Yeah. If you read John Hick further, you will find that he liked to use these two terms, reality, real, the real with capital R, which refers to the God with capital R, and the real with small letter r, which refer to gods, yeah, with small g. Yeah. So making God at the center of the universe, yeah, at the center of faith, and this God is not the God that is exclusive to any religions. This God is in fact the God of everybody, the God of everything. All right. And this is how salvation, according to John Hick, yeah, have to be understood. Yeah. And according to him, is this possible? Yes, this is possible because man is free in terms of making sense of his belief. So such transformation is possible because you can rationalize the transformation, and as a matter of fact, is making this transformation appealing to your cognitive, very sound in terms of your understanding and reasoning. All right. So salvation, according to him, requires transformation. The concept of salvation requires transformation. Also, Hick had used the word noumenon and phenomenon. Noumenon and phenomenon. So, why he uses these two terms? If you read Hick's discourse on this context of the use of the term, you'll find that Hick was very much influenced by Immanuel Kant. For those who study philosophy, I bet you know Immanuel Kant very well. He's the Prince of Enlightenment. And he's very much known of his reasoning approach. His what you call that? His preference for reasoning, especially in the context of understanding religion. He believes that religion should be made reasonable, logical, in order to be accepted. If religion does not help or does not fulfill human reasonable understanding, then that religion can be debated. All right. So this has influenced Hick, and therefore Hick applied this concept of noumenon and phenomenon in his philosophy or conception of transformation. Yeah. So he said that God at the center is the noumenon God, whereas gods as belief in different religions around this noumenon God are phenomenon God. You see, phenomenon gods in the sense that that's the way gods are made to understand, made by men to understand. Yeah, how they comprehend gods based on their logical understanding, experiential context. So they understand God on the basis of phenomenon. But would they be able to understand God in the context of noumenon? They can, provided that they are able to accept this idea of transformation. Yeah, understanding God, that there are two forms of God. The first God, the ultimate God, which is the noumenon God, that embraces all the different gods in the world. Whereas the gods believe in the different religions are basically phenomenon, the way human interprets God in the phenomenon, uh, phenomenon, phenomenologically, or in the context of phenomenon. All right, or accurately speaking, the way they experience God. So you'll find also that Hicks, in this context of transformation, noumenon, and phenomenon, he prefers to use the word the real instead of the word God. If you can relate with my lecture earlier on the concept of religion of Wilfred Cantwell Smith, then you can relate to the idea of God that is known in different names. Yeah. So this God has many names in different religions. So Hick was not inclined to take this God in different names in different religions as the ultimate, as the real with capital R. They are the real with small r. The ultimate God is the noumenon with capital R, and how do we reach to that God? That we will discuss later. All right. Okay, so according to Hick, all these religions who believe in the gods, many gods, actually understand the noumenon based on their context, based on their historical construct, based on their social construct, based on their experience, based on their interpretation. So it is at this juncture that John Hick's idea seems to echo Wilfred Cantwell Smith's conceptions of cumulative tradition. Even though he did not use any single term as cumulative tradition in his explanation of the manifestation of God in different terms in the different religions. But you can find that he resembles the idea of John Hick, or Wilfred Cantwell Smith, or he echoes the idea of John Hick, as he believed that religion is a manifestation of the context. Yeah. All right. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that just like Wilfred Cantwell Smith, Hicks also believed that human belief system, human conception of God is very much designed, influenced, and shaped by his background or his context or his tradition and his interpretation. Yeah? Okay. In our consultation later, I will ask you, what does it signify with regard to his understanding and conception about God from human perspective. All right. Okay, now I think the third point which I am going to highlight about John Hick's promotion or proposal of religious pluralism is in the context of his understanding of religion as a myth. John Hick believed that any conception or belief system in religion is merely a myth. Okay, myth here not in the context of myth here is not in the context of myth that you understand uh, as generic mythos, you know, like you believe in the story of Masuri, of Hang Tuah, so on and so forth. Yeah, myth here in the context of sacred belief. It belongs to the dimension of the sacred. As you if you can still remember, I've spoken about sacred and profane. I think this is the third time I am um, exerting about these two concepts, which is very much important when you talk about modern philosophy, secular, humanistic perspective of the world, of the nature. So, John Hick believed that some of the doctrines in religion should not and cannot be interpreted literally. He believes that all these doctrine and conceptions are mere mythical and metaphorical as well as symbolical. So in his opinion, if you want to believe in all these myths, you cannot take them as literal, but you have to take them as symbolical. For example, he reinterpret the doctrine of incarnation in Christianity. The Christian used to believe that the idea of incarnation or the doctrine of incarnation uh, is the real uh, God incarnated in the body of Jesus. So, or in the manhood of Jesus. So, right after he was crucified, and then he was ascended to the heaven, and then he was incarnated. He was no longer Jesus when he was alive. He has become God incarnated in Jesus. This was the traditional setting or understanding of incarnation in Christianity, for example. But then Hick believed that is not supposed to be the right understanding. Hick believed that incarnation means the divine purpose of agape, the divine purpose of love, the love towards mankind that has enveloping or has become Jesus, the love of God that has overcome, that has taken over Jesus. And because of that, Jesus allowed himself to be crucified. And that love is the love of God that become incarnated in Jesus. You know, when dealing with sinful humanity, the men who are sinful. So because of this love, Jesus sacrificed himself to redeem man from this sin. Okay, the next point that I'm going to talk about religious pluralism of John Hick is his reliance on mysticism. Yeah, it is quite interesting to learn that John Hick he was a philosopher. He was a theologian originally, and he was a philosopher of religion. However, it is quite strange for a person who knows mysticism, the nature of mysticism, scholars of mysticism, the arguments in mysticism, to note that John Hick has some preference to mysticism. He used mysticism to substantiate his idea of religious pluralism. For example, John Hick, in many of his work, loved to quote from the mystics. For example, he quotes from Jalaluddin al-Rumi. Jalaluddin al-Rumi, in his poems, said that the lamps are different, but the light is the same. It comes from beyond. And according to John Hick, this phrase can be interpreted that faith, religions are different. But from where does these religions come? these religions were actually derived or coming from the same source. And this same source is not known because why? Because it comes from beyond. So this source, which he termed as the real with capital R, which he termed as Noumenon, yeah, is not known to mankind. This belongs to the sacred dimension, and this dimension is beyond human comprehension. You will not be able to get access to it, to understand it, to comprehend it by merely using your experience and reasoning. So your knowledge is limited to your reasoning and experience, including your understanding of God. Therefore, human ended up with many conceptions of God because they had to depend on their experience, on their logical understanding of who God is. All right, and also he cited from Mahyuddin Ibn Arabi, and then Junaidi al-Baghdadi, who seem to promote the idea that the light of God is refracted through many human lenses. This is very, very clear in Hick's work titled The Rainbow of Faith. So according to Hick, these different religions are the refraction of divine light because man uses different lenses to interpret God. It also refers to Mr. Eckhart, one of the prominent Christian mystics, yeah, Julian of Norwich and Evelyn Underhill, in their mystical experiences in knowing God, the transcendent. For example, Eckhart say, when the divine light pours into the soul is united with God as light blends with light. All right. Okay, and Hicks believed also that the idea of the real, the transcendent God can only be captured inwardly or spiritually, innerly, yeah, in the inner concept. Cannot be transpired in your cognitive and experiential, endeavor. It is very subtle, just like Wilfred Cantwell Smith. It belongs to the sacred dimension. It belongs to your personal experience. It belongs to your personal conviction. Yeah. And according to Hick, this is one way of appreciating pluralism. Yeah? Because you acknowledge that this God that is inwardly understood, yeah, has been manifested in different terms, different real terms. Yeah. All right. Okay, my battery is out now.